This is Analog Spectrum, now accepting applications for a host that's actually funny.
Maybe we can get Lucy to bark a little bit.
You can't barely hear it anyway.
No. Well, when she was in your lap, boy, man, that's oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, she barks like she has laryngitis.
All right, this is Analog Spectrum. We are back. This is Tony, and I'm with Doug. Say hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
Nice. So I'm actually excited about this one.
Yeah, let's share with the world.
Yeah, so Doug and I are going to get married. Yeah. Oh, by the way, actually, because we can. Doug's getting new dogs. That's
I am.
cool.
Yes, I am getting 2 mini Australian Shepherds in a couple days.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I cannot wait to meet them. 2 female mini Australian Shepherds.
And one of them is like this golden yellow. Well, I don't, there's a name for it. It's the yellow golden merle color, not the blue merle.
Right.
Anyway, but she's just got these little curly locks, and she looks like she's wearing eyeliner or whatever. So I'm naming her Farrah after Farrah Fawcett.
That's awesome.
She's gorgeous. Yeah. So anyway,
maybe we'll have a podcast about dogs.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I could talk all day about that.
I could too. So, but that's not what we're talking about today.
It is not.
So I think most everyone's aware.
We're talking about Uncle Sam's Confused Group. We
are. So, and both Doug and I were in the Coast Guard. I think I think everybody's aware of that, and both of us are retired Coast Guard. And I'm glad you brought this up. I hadn't thought about it, but we're always kind of bouncing topics off each other, and I think this may become kind of not a regular thing, not everything, but every podcast. But I have friends that were in the Coast Guard, and I think some of the stories that we can tell are kind of unique and interesting and funny and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I'm hoping that we can
that we can say out loud.
Well, so I think what I'd like to do is maybe maybe start from square one. Tell me about your recruiting, and you go back to go back to the earliest Coast Guard associated memory and work from there.
Let me just tell you how it all started.
Please.
All right. Well, so growing up, my whole family was military. My dad was Navy. My mom was Navy. My uncle was Army. My older brother was a Marine. Mm-hmm. My next older brother did a short time in the Army. Got hurt in boot camp and literally got the boot. Anyway, so I was unaware in high school. Mm-hmm. I was a drifter. I had no clue what the hell I was doing. I was literally living day to day. Cars and music and girls. That was it. It's all I cared about.
Sure.
Anyway, so my dad gives me the old, hey, what are you going to do with your life talk? I was probably 16, maybe 17. And I'm like, I don't know. First thing that popped in my head was I really admired my older brother. And I was like, well, I'm gonna be a Marine. I'm going to go join the Marines. My dad laughed at me. I was like 6'1" and 135 pounds. Like I was literally a toothpick, man. Mm-hmm. And so he says, you think so, huh? You call your brother and see what he says about that. And my brother had gone, and he was a helicopter mechanic, and he had gone and done some work on some of the helos, and we were trying to do a hostage rescue somewhere in the Middle East, and he was on that crew, and that didn't go well. And anyway, so he had some less than favorable experiences. Anyway, so I call him up, or my dad calls him and gets him on the phone and says, yeah, your brother wants to join the Marine Corps, and I want him to talk to you about it. So I get on the phone, and my brother says, you join the Marine Corps, I am personally going to come down there and kick your ass.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, wait, what? Because he always came off to me as he was real proud of it and stuff. So he went on to explain to me that those folks aren't really treated very well as people, right? And I think he understood. My brother was a caustic person, like his personality. He was rough and tough, and he fitted the Marine Corps great. But I think he understood that I would not. Mm-hmm. I was just more sensitive than him. And anyway, so yeah, he gave me a lecture about they don't treat you well. And
you are a fucking flower.
That's cool by me. I don't care. I like it, so the rest of the world can.
No, actually, I think it's interesting that he gave you good advice.
Yeah, he really did. And so I hung up the phone.
I want to interject something real quick, only because I'll forget if I don't do this.
Yeah.
When I was on the bus going to the airport from MEPS, there was a group of like 4 guys that were sitting there, and they were all going to Paris Island, right?
Uh-huh.
They were going to Marine boot camp, and they were all like, "Yeah, we're going to be Marines," and they were like, "Ooh-rah the fuck," right?
Uh-huh.
And everybody's going down the list, and they were going like, "What are you? Where?" Because it was everybody, right? It was Air Forces,
right,
Navy.
right.
And it got to me, and I was a little, and they're like, "What? Where are you going?" And I said, I joined the Coast Guard." And I remember looking at those 4 guys, and one of the guys on the very end, like, looked at me, and I could tell just by looking in his eyes, he was like, "I done fucked up."
Yeah, he's like, why didn't I think of that?
Why didn't I join the Coast Guard? It's like, and I got that look a lot. But anyway, so
anyway, I hung up the phone with him, and then my dad and I carried on our conversation.
Uh-huh.
And I had never heard of the Coast Guard. I lived in Florida my entire life.
Wow.
And I'd never heard of the Coast Guard. That's how unaware I was. I just didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, he started talking about, well, what up with the Navy? I'm like, no. I get seasick, man. I had gone, I didn't know, right?
Shit.
Anyway, so I had gone on fishing trips with him. We go deep sea fishing, drift fishing, and I just puke my guts out every time. So he'd spend $50 to take us fishing, and he just basically paid $50 so I could throw up all day.
Right.
Anyway, so I'm like, yeah, no. And then he says, well, I don't know if you're going to be able to even get into the Air Force because the requirements are high and all that sort of. I had no interest in the Army. I just was not anyway. So he had mentioned the Coast Guard, and I'm like, sure, I don't know, whatever. I don't know anything about it, Mm-hmm. He said, well, let's go talk to the recruiter. And I lived in West Palm Beach at the time. We had to drive all the way down to Miami, North Miami, but all the way down to Miami to the recruiter's office. Sat and chatted with that guy for a few minutes, and he showed me videos and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I had no clue the repercussions. I didn't know any of it. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And I actually thought I was kind of joining like the Florida Marine Patrol,
right?
Where they would go and like rescue or pull an alligator out of an old lady's backyard after her poodle got eaten. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that kind of stuff.
Or Baywatch.
Maybe, yeah. No, not that, but like Everglades.
No.
Everglades, that kind of thing. That's kind of what I was thinking. Anyway, so, next thing you know, same with you. I actually drove myself back and forth to MEPS. But for those who don't know, MEPS is the Military Entrance Processing Station, and all services have to send their applicants there, and they take a physical, and you take the ASVAB test. And so that kind of lands you on what you're qualified to do in the military. So
it's the first place where you put your right hand up and you
swear. Yeah, if you qualify, if everything goes right and you pass the physical and you pass the ASVAB, then you raise your right hand and you swear to join.
It is the entry point.
Yep.
We all go through MEPS.
Yep.
And there's probably, I don't know how many there are, but they're in major cities.
Yeah, there's plenty of them. So anyway, so I did okay on my test. I didn't do great. I remember I always had anxiety taking tests and stuff.
Sure.
And the way that the ASVAB is designed is it is literally designed so you can't get a perfect score.
Right.
It quickly ramps up. Like in the math, it'll ask you 2 + 2, and then it'll ask you 2 × 2, and then it'll ask you like the square root of 2, and then it'll start getting into calculus. And so it does that on purpose, because what they're trying to figure out is how high does your education go. And that tells us then where can we actually put you with some level of success, right?
Right.
If you can't add, we're not going to make you a missile tech, and so
right.
on. So anyway, so
but they'll let you polish the pointy end of a bullet.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I did pretty decent on the test, and I was qualified for all kinds of stuff. But again, this is where I didn't know this at the time.
Right.
But there was no talk of guaranteed jobs or any of that stuff. I just joined the Coast Guard. And, okay, sure. When do I go? And I actually went in the day after my 18th birthday. That's when I shipped off to boot camp.
Wow.
And the only other part of that really that I remember is my dad drove me to the recruiter's office on the day that I was enlisting. And he has this old F-150, driving down the freeway. And he's like, I'm proud of you, boy. And I'm like, oh, good. That's good, Dad. Thanks, And he says, yeah, I got a couple pieces of advice for you. I said, okay. He says, first piece of advice, take any school they give you. Right. They're going to teach you all kinds of stuff. Take every school that they'll give you. And I said, okay. And then he said, second piece of advice, learn to drink black coffee. Because you never know when you're going to run out of all the cream and the sugar and all that sort of stuff. So the only school I ever turned down was EMT. I had no blood and guts. I just wasn't interested. And I went into food service. So me personally, I never ran out of cream or sugar. Y'all betches might have, but I never did. Well, in fact, by the time I made Chief, I was buying Starbucks for the Chief's mess. So y'all suckers drink the Folgers, and I'm getting the good stuff.
I drink cream in my coffee because of the coffee in the military.
Yeah, so. The tar.
Yeah.
So what about you? How did yours go?
Okay, yeah. Here we go. And I think this is it. So. And maybe the individual I joined with is listening, and not this. I'm telling the story with very little hyperbole, right? Okay. Very little. I'm not dramatizing. I graduated high school. I wanted to be a mechanic. I went to a community college, learned how to turn wrenches there. Had a job working at an Oldsmobile dealership. I actually worked for Rolls-Royce within the dealership. Just wasn't what I was good at, right?
Okay.
But I'd already moved out. I was probably like 20, 21 years old. I was living with a friend, and him and I we decided, and even though I'd never, ever watched more than like one episode of Miami Vice, Miami Vice was the series finale for Miami Vice was coming on, and for some reason we just wanted to have a bender and watch the season finale. We'd heard Crockett and Tubbs were going to die in it or something like that. We didn't know, doesn't matter. And we watched that, and we got pretty drunk. And the last commercial break had a Louis Gossett Jr.
Oh, I remember that commercial.
Yes, commercial. Yeah. And it was in the Keys. Remember the cigarette boat and the Tube 10 and everything like that. And I remember my roommate was like, hey, we should sign up for the Coast Guard, right? And I was like, oh, man. And I think it was almost like a dare. We were like, all right, yeah, if you go to the recruiter, I'll go to the recruiter, right. And I think like the next day, man, it was, and I was at a point in my life where it was very rare for me to follow through with anything, right? Mm-hmm. I was just kind of just adrift.
Still figuring stuff out.
Yeah, very, very cliche, but that's the way it was. And I remember going down the recruiter, and I remember, and Doug was a recruiter, by the way.
Yeah, I was.
He was. But I remember, an Army recruiter is different from all the other and an Air Force recruiter and so forth from a Coast Guard recruiter, because you may have had quotas and all that kind of stuff, but they just weren't.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, but they just weren't. But it's not like the Army, where the Army's got to recruit like hundreds, where the Coast Guard, it can be a little bit more selective.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and so my recruiter, people say, oh yeah, my recruiter lied to me. My recruiter did not lie to me, right? Mm-hmm. He could take or leave me. It didn't matter.
Yeah, that was pretty much our attitude when we were in recruiting. So.
Yeah, and I will tell you one thing that you mentioned about the Marines. It was always my observation that whatever resource defines a branch of the service, that resource gets treated like shit. Okay, like in the Coast Guard, it's the boats and ships.
Yes,
we're always beating the shit out of those.
Yeah, we do.
The Air Force, it's the planes. The Navy, it's the ships. Yeah. The Marines and Army, it's the people. It's the people, right? They treat the people like shit. Yeah. So anyway, I go into the recruiter, and he says, I can do two things for you. I can give you a guaranteed district, or I can give you guaranteed school, right? And I was like, oh, it's funny because, and you'll appreciate this. I don't know if I told you the story or not, but he pulls out like this 24-page pamphlet. At the time, the Coast Guard had 24 rates, right? Mm-hmm. And it looked like it had been drawn for like a seventh grader, right? And it was describing stuff, it'd be like, boatswain mate, you get to drive the boats. You learn how to tie knots and shit, right? A fire control technician gets to fire the big gun, right? Right. And I remember like looking at subsistence specialist. At the time it was SS subsistence, and I go, is this like a chef? And he goes, fuck no. And Doug was an SS. He was
yes. And I gotta tell you, somebody called me that yesterday, and I corrected them quickly.
What, a subsistence specialist?
No, they called me a chef. Because I told them I was in the military. I went into food service and like, oh yeah, I'm never having you over. You're a chef. I'm like, it's a cook. Yeah, I was a cook.
Well, maybe today, maybe later time, we'll talk about like recipe cards and all that kind of stuff. But I asked about fire control technician. I said, that sounds very cool. And he goes, no. You're in the skin of the ship. You don't see the gun fire. You're just basically doing
pushing buttons.
Yeah, and probably the three rates that I gravitated towards was gunner's mate, HS, which I went, and public affairs, right?
Okay.
And because I'd broken my leg, had been in the hospital, met people that I liked, all that kind of stuff that were medical providers, I decided to sign up for become a health services technician, and that was the right thing to do, right? That turned out to be right thing to do, and I also did a 6-month delayed, and both me and my roommate did a 6-month delayed. He actually took a 2-year. The other thing that he would give you is rather than do 4 years, you could do 2.
Oh wow!
And he did 2.
You had to score high on the ASVAB for that.
The 2, he did. Yeah, he did 2. And also, I think he got a guaranteed district, which, by the way, is the districts in the Coast Guard are huge.
Yeah, it's almost useless.
Yeah, it's pretty much useless. Exactly.
We guarantee you're going to be on the East Coast.
East Coast, right? Okay. East Coast. 7th district was Florida. 5th district was what I think he took, and he was hoping to get 5th district Georgia, but he got 5th district Washington D.C., which is, and so anyway. And we that's what I did. I signed. I got a health service technician guaranteed school, and so
did you go straight out of boot camp to school?
No, that's a great question, and we'll get to boot camp in a minute. But that's the difference between the Coast Guard and other services too. And hopefully, there might be somebody listening out there that's interested in going to the Coast Guard. I don't know if it's changed since we were in, but it just put me on the next school list. Like as soon as the school list opened up, I jumped to that school list, but they weren't running a whole, so I still had to wait like 11 months to go to school.
Right. Okay.
But most people that were going corpsman because it was a popular rate,
had to wait years.
Had to wait years. Yeah. So anyway, what about you? Did you go?
Well, no, I basically. Well, I guess now's a good time to talk about boot camp because I mean, this guy didn't talk to me about guaranteed anything.
Right.
So I was like, I didn't care. I didn't know. I was just go with the flow.
You were in Florida, right?
Yeah, I joined in Florida. I went to boot camp in Cape May, New Jersey, and then boot camp was. I felt isolated.
Was Alameda still a boot camp when you went, or was it close?
I think it was, but I didn't know about it.
Right,
I didn't know about it. But
and you went through what MEPS?
Miami.
Okay.
Yeah, and we flew from Miami to New Jersey. And then took the bus from the airport over to the Cape May. And so
everybody knows that are listening, Cape May is like on the southernmost point of New Jersey.
Yeah, it's on the coast.
Yeah, on the coast. So it is a bus ride.
Yeah.
From whatever. I flew into Philadelphia.
Okay.
So go ahead. Tell us about.
Well, anyway, So I was going to say I felt a little bit isolated. This is one of the times I felt like an individual in boot camp, and what's cool is that it was a positive experience. So, I remember one of the things I remember is kind of like what you were saying. There was a lot of bravado. I got on the bus. I think it might have been Philly that we flew into. Now that you say that, it might have been Philly. But anyways, whatever. We all gathered up at the USO, and then some guy comes in and goes, "Everybody going to boot camp, get over here." And so off we went and climbed on this bus, and had a small little travel duffel bag with you.
What year?
This was 1983.
Okay.
And we climb on the bus, and then man, it was loud, and everybody was talking, and whatever. It was all, whatever. It was just busy and sort of like being in high school.
What time of year?
This was August.
Okay.
So it was warm. But anyway, so we're driving down the turnpike or where we were on, and then we get off the turnpike, and it got a little bit quieter. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as the bus pulled up, like to the base where you could see the entrance of the base, we didn't get to like 10 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. When the bus pulled up, it was silent. Like all these tough guys were all of a sudden like, oh shit, now we're scared. And again, I was just very, very like observant, maybe it's the wrong word, but just living in the moment. I didn't care. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't care what to expect. Mm-hmm. And then so I was about in the middle of the bus, and I remember I was sitting in an aisle seat, and we pull up to where we stop, and then the guy gets on the bus and starts screaming, "You got 30 seconds to get off the bus. Just wasted 10 of them." That whole typical thing. But I wasn't freaked out. I wasn't nervous. My dad yelled at me like that as my whole life, man. It was like, okay, I'll get off the bus. And all these other guys were panicked, man. I think, some of them probably peed their pants. But I was ready for it. And then, they just tell you get off the bus and stand on this little yellow square and all that sort of stuff. And just like you see in the movies. And I just followed directions. That was it. And I just I didn't know, but I was pretty sure like nobody was going to hit me. Mm-hmm. Nobody was going to like physically hurt me. You could yell at me all day. You cannot yell at me worse than my father yelled at me. So I don't give a shit. So I was like totally fine. I might even have been smiling for all I know.
Some of it was funny too.
Yeah. And so, I can appreciate their sense of humor. Again, growing in a military family, I heard it all,
And I think for me, my experience, as I remember it, was somewhat similar.
Mm-hmm.
I think mine had more to do with like kind of the gazelle situation where we were all together and all getting yelled at. It wasn't directed at me, but similar.
But so then you start the processing stuff, and of course they stand you out there forever. I had been in the Civil Air Patrol when I was in high school, so I knew the position of attention, and I knew how to march, and I knew a bunch of that. So I was on the drill team and stuff. So I was pretty trained and all that stuff. So none of that stuff bothered me. But the worst part, I think, was that whole night of processing, man. Shit, you get there at like 10 and they bring you in this room and they make you fill out all these papers. And then they're if you have any of this, make sure you give it to us now. If you had pot, if you had cigarettes, if you had a knife, if you had a lighter, whatever, they list this big old stuff. And
did they let you smoke when you were in?
No.
Yeah, same. Okay.
No. Yeah, they confiscated all that stuff. And your recruiter told you not to bring it, but some idiots still brought it.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Fortunately, there were idiots.
Yeah. So they got all the attention.
They got all the attention, yeah. So,
so we go through all that crap, and then I think we probably got to bed at like 12:30 or 1 or something. And you just go in. I remember going into the squad bay, and they just tell you to pick a rack, and they were 3 high. And I just, because it was easy, I just picked the middle rack, which was great. Yeah. That's the ideal rack. If anybody doesn't know that, the bottom one is okay, but you got 2 guys climbing out of the rack down on your head if you're not careful.
Right.
And the top one is kind of a pain in the ass to get in and get out of. So I just got lucky and I got the middle rack. But and then the next morning, just a couple hours later, they came in and they did that typical thing, man, banging the trash can, screaming and yelling. And the very first thing we had to do the next day was pee in a cup. And that was when they just started all that drug testing stuff. And you got to pee in a cup, then go get breakfast. And they're just yelling at you the whole time. And then that whole next day sucked because that whole day was like processing, getting your uniforms and all that, standing in line with your arms out. And they pile shit on top. And then, you have to try it on. And some lady's stitching it for you, like hemming it, whatever. It's that whole thing. And then I think the following day, you take breaks throughout the day to go get meals and stuff. And then, of course, they're making you do push-ups and all that stuff. And I think it was that second day we went through medical. And they just blasted both arms with the shots, and they had the air guns, like, and they tell you right away, don't move. You're going to cut yourself with the air, if you. So
those things are gone now, by the way.
Yeah, I would imagine. But you stand still, and they hit us on both sides, man, one on each side, and then make us walk right out and start doing push-ups. They all have blood trickling down our arms and shit.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, probably not. But and after that, it was really just a sequence of events that things got more and more challenging. And I just remember at the beginning, because of my Civil Air Patrol training, watching these idiots try to march and try to keep in step, and I'm just like, damn, dude, this is easy. What the hell is the matter with you?
Yeah,
I couldn't do it. I mean,
I remember.
You ever watch The Amazing Race?
Yeah.
You see that one episode when that dude was trying to march and he was like completely jacked up?
It's not hard, but there were people that could do it. That fucked it up. But of course, for them when they would mess it up, it was either a good thing or a bad thing. Because sometimes they would bring all the heat on them, but sometimes they would bring.
Most of the time, it wasn't everybody. If you screwed it up, everybody had to do push-ups.
Well, but of course, then those individuals became an outcast. I think what I remember about boot camp. So I went in October 31st.
Okay.
I went on Halloween.
Okay.
And I remember when I left, one of the last things I did before I left was carve a pumpkin. and that's a tradition for me now. I have to carve a pumpkin.
Okay.
And flew into Philly. We got in super late. Everybody on our bus was quiet and all the way.
Wow.
And the bus actually got egged when it got into Cape May.
No shit.
Yeah, not bad, but like 4 or 5 eggs. I remember them
funny.
slamming against the window. And I had no idea what to expect from boot camp. I knew it was boot camp, but I thought to myself, how difficult could be for anybody listening. I would probably say Coast Guard boot camp is at least on par with everybody else's, right?
Yeah, not quite the Marine Corps, right?
Right,
because
right.
of that intensity, but
you do push-ups, you do sit-ups. It's physical.
Yeah.
I would also say that that, you know, there's a lot of classes, but
Mm-hmm.
none of them are difficult. I
No.
mean, if you got through, the things I remember is, I remember, you know, when I went, I was overweight, and that freaking called the heat on me from
From right from the beginning. Yeah.
yeah, and that was okay. I mean, whatever. I don't care. Now, I think at the time I thought it was hard. In retrospect, it wasn't.
Right.
You know, it wasn't that hard. But and there was a lot of physical stuff. If you screwed up as an individual or as a company, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you could go do that thing where they would take you into a room and just waylay you. There's all these kind of you know, internal urban legends about things they do, like Escape from Cape May. I don't know if you ever had to do
Mm-hmm.
that. Did you ever have to do Escape
No,
from Cape
we
May?
never did.
They talked about the duck pond where they would take you out to the Escape from Cape May was this thing where they supposedly would take you down there with your sea bag and have you fill it with sand, and you had to like throw your sea bag down the beach, you know, as a company. We never
we didn't have to do
never did any of that stuff.
Dude, my company commander I think he was on the verge of retirement. So
Right.
he was, I want to say he was over it, but he wasn't as enthusiastic as like a new company commander.
Yeah, mine was a dick,
Yeah.
you know, and but whatever. You know, I think there was individuals that were company commanders that realized that it was just a job, and I think there's other individuals that it was an ego trip.
Feeding that ego.
Yeah, and I think he was one on the latter. But whatever. I don't.
Yeah, you survived.
I don't hate him for him. I don't.
Yeah.
I have no. He doesn't occupy any space in my head.
Right.
But the things that I remember is, for one, I mentioned the guaranteed school. At the time I thought, I kind of want to change my guaranteed school to public affairs. I like to write. I like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, that's not a thing, bro. You know, you got to guarantee. You know, you can turn down your guaranteed school, but we're not giving you another guaranteed school.
Else, yeah.
Like you, I did not know that the Coast Guard had ships. Okay, and I remember like when we were in vessels and aircraft class, and they were throwing up pictures of 210s.
Yeah.
The 378s.
So for those listening, you have to go to a class on how to identify the different ships and aircraft.
Of the Coast Guard.
Yeah, of the Coast Guard. They did a couple when I was there. They did a couple Army ones. Right. But it wasn't a lot.
No.
Yeah.
And I remember when they put up like a 378, and I was like, how long does that thing stay out? And I remember asking,
they tell you stats
like 3
stuff.
months, like 3 months you're out, you know.
Like,
and
what?
I was like, what the fuck? They
I
got
had the
ships.
same. Yeah, I had the same reaction.
Yeah, and then there was that.
Hey, when you guys did your classes, I remember specifically that class, and there was a couple others we did as well. We did ours inside of a racquetball court.
No, we had a classroom.
Oh, man, I don't know what the deal was, where they revamping the classes or something, but literally they had a projector, like an old movie projector, set up in this racquetball court, and they were projecting the image onto the wall, and we were all sitting on the floor in the racquetball court. And I didn't care about any of that, except it was really tough to understand what the guy was saying because it was so echoey.
Echoey? No.
Yeah, and so I just remember, what the hell are we doing in a racquetball court?
Actually, the classroom we had were pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were, you know, and of course going to class was great. You know, because people didn't rag on you.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had like knot tying class, which was, there was all kinds of classes, and academically, I destroyed it. You know what I mean? That got me to the point where I got it. Where I could actually get a pretty good pick out of boot camp. Yeah, and and I wasn't great. I was in the middle. You know what I mean? My physical, I wasn't great. You know what I mean? I wasn't doing like a million push-ups and a million.
Same, dude. I was a toothpick, man. I couldn't run, save my life.
Same. So I got by. I got by on the physical just barely. I'm gonna be honest with everyone. But academically, I crushed it. You know, same. And so I was in the middle. And then the other thing is, there was one guy in our company that I think it was Zulu company or Zebra company. I think that the one where it doesn't fall within the phonetics, where like if you completely were like a complete fuck up, either academically or physically, they would hold you over.
Oh, we called that the Goon Squad.
Yeah, and for us, we didn't want to do that because the Cape May, we were supposed to graduate like December 11th, and if you got reverted,
held back,
you got held back. Your company picked back up like January 1. You didn't get home for Christmas, so we were like really, it was pushing, you know. But I remember there was this one guy, and for some reason he just was a moron, and he would wear white socks with his his blues and he just disappeared. But there was this one time, this killed me, where we were marching, right? And in the Coast Guard, there's that thing about gear drift, right? The whole thing with a ship is that if it's sinking and they have to drop pumps into the sinking areas, if there's anything floating around, it can clog the pumps. So they're really there's a big deal. You got to keep your foot, just like in Full Metal Jacket, got to keep your locker locked. And you don't, and everything has to be tied.
Loose gear has to be stowed or tied.
Oh, yeah. And so we had those ditty bags, right? And we had those ditty bags.
It was a little cloth sack, basically.
We didn't use it for anything.
You hung off the side of your bunk.
And it had your name on it. You stenciled your name on it. But we didn't use it. It just had to hang, right?
Right.
And fuck if I know, right? It was just this thing, right? And I can't remember the guy's name. Let's say his name was Johnson, right? And this kid, we were out there marching in the quad doing the quad is huge, by the way. It's like this very, multiple football field. Yeah. And we're out there marching around, and all of a sudden here comes, and we were alone. The squad leader was marching us, and the company commander was off, doing whatever he was doing, drinking coffee smoking and joking with his buddies. And all of a sudden here he comes walking across the quad, and he's holding up a freaking ditty bag, right? And he's going, who's Johnson? Who the fuck is Johnson, right? And I don't remember if that was a kid's name or not, but sir, I am, sir. And he freaking ties that damn ditty bag around that kid's neck like a Superman cape, right? And he goes, for the rest of the time we're out here marching, I want you to put your arms out in front of you and run around the company like you're Superman. But I want you to say, ding, ding, I'm a shithead. So
those guys did have some pretty creative punishments.
So this guy so we're out there marching, and this guy's running circles like with his arms out in front of him like Superman, going like, ding, ding, I'm a shithead, ding, ding, I'm a shithead, right? And it was funny, but after like about 15 minutes, man, this kid was wasted, right? He was falling out, right? And but yeah, I remember that. I remember
we had one really similar. We were in the quad marching and whatever. They must stage this stuff. I'm not sure, but somebody. We had a white tornado, and a white tornado, for anybody who doesn't know, is when the company commanders. I don't think they do this anymore, but what they used to do is they would come in when you were out. The whole company was out doing something. They would come in and literally trash your barracks. They would tip over the bunks, rip all the sheets off,
right,
knock the lockers over and the whole thing, and then they would shout at you and you would have to go in and clean it all up. Well, I think they did that, and somebody had left something, like their locker was open because everything was in a hurry, right? So you had a combination lock. And what a lot of guys would do is you would do the combination and you would leave it like 2 numbers away. So when you got back, it was on 6, and all you had to do was turn it to 8 and click it open, right? So that was a faster way. You figure out ways to cheat, right? So we were doing life hacks long before there were life hacks,
right?
But anyway, so somebody screwed something or whatever, and their locker was open. So the company commander comes out, drops us all for push-ups and shouting at us and all that sort of stuff. He says, "You guys got a white tornado, and I've chained and locked your squad bay door, and here's the key." And he made us all stand back up and look at the key. And this is, again, like Tony said, it's like a big double, triple, maybe football field. And he took that key and he heaved it. Now everybody on your hands and knees and go just find the key. So we're crawling on our hands and knees back and forth across the quad looking for this key. I don't know. We must have made 4 or 5 trips, and everybody's pissed off by now. Your uniform is trash. You're dirty. You're tired. Cold. And so we get to the end where the pavement is, and he walks up and he says, "What the hell's the matter with you guys?" And he drops the key on the ground. And, "It's right here." So it's get your ass in there and clean all that shit up.
Oh my God.
And so man, so that kind of stuff they did,
Yeah, I'm sure they have all kinds of
those guys sitting around drinking coffee like, "Oh, you should see, I got a good one today, man."
Yeah, I got an idea of something you want to do. You should do this.
Try this.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I had a hard time.
Well, it's because it's like, is it like psychological torture? Does it help you grow? Does it? I remember, just, whatever. But
I remember one time telling my company commander that he wanted us all to go on a run, and I told him I didn't. I don't know what got into me, but I told him I didn't want to go, and he's like, "Well, then don't go." And I was like, "What?" I was like ready to get my ass chewed. But that was, we were talking about psychological mind screw. Yeah. I was like, well, okay.
Well, the other thing we had to do is you had to clean your squad bay, right? And everybody had assigned chores and whatever. And so I volunteered, I guess, or put myself on the floor waxing crew.
Right.
So everybody else would do what they had to do. Some people clean the bathroom. Everybody you're responsible for your own bunk and your own ditty bag and your own locker and stuff. But then there was, some guys did windows and whatever. So I was on the floor waxing crew. So we were last, typically. We did, because you want that floor shine. And when I say floor waxing, this is not like with the cool buffer machine.
No.
This was a sponge. This was literally a 4-inch wide by 6-inch wide sponge, yellow sponge. And you poured wax onto the floor out of a gallon jug. And then if you were careful, you could like drag the sponge nice and carefully, and you would make that floor really super shiny.
Yeah.
And so there was about 6 or 8 of us on this, and we would be on our hands and knees, and we'd start on one end, and we would go all the way to the other end. And by the time we were halfway through, you start kicking people out because you don't want them to step on your brand new waxed floor, So anyway, so we were at one point after a white tornado, we were cleaning up and we were waxing the floor, and all the bunks were pushed to one side, and we had waxed the empty side, and we were starting to go and work on the other side. Well, and of course, 18 years old, goofing off, you making friends and whatever. So me and a couple of other dudes, we crawled underneath the bunks, and we were horsing around. I don't know what the hell we were doing under there. We were just goofing off, giggling and laughing like you're not supposed to. And one of the company commanders came in from the other side of the door. And every time a company commander comes in, you have to yell, "Attention on deck," and everybody has to jump up and stand at attention and listen to this dude and whatever he has to say. Well, we were underneath these bunks. So we just stayed there. And I remember like a horror movie where you hide underneath the bed, man. And they always wore those taps on the heels. They have little metal things, click, 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 and they're walking by. And we were watching 3 or 4 of us were underneath these beds. And we were watching the dude walk by, and he was ripping these guys, man, and making a couple of them do push-ups. And we're trying not to laugh. We're up underneath these beds. And we got away with it. We pulled it off, man.
Well, anytime they would come in to crank you, you would always try to drop in a place where
you had some space.
Yeah, and you weren't in a line of sight.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you could kind of,
you could do half push-ups.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what were we you mentioned something that I was like, I definitely wanted to follow up on, just the whole experience.
The white tornado thing.
Well, the white tornado, I know that there, and it could be urban legend, but there was a story about how they did a white tornado, and one kid had lice, and then everybody got lice. That's what kind of our pubic lice. Or
hey, let me ask you this: What was your? Do you have any memory of your first experience of the whole like open bathrooms, open toilets, open showers, all that stuff?
Well, we had stalls in the toilets.
Yeah, I don't think we had doors.
Yeah, I had doors, but I remember one guy said one time it's not taking the shit, it's having to wipe. That was what made it awkward.
Yeah, it was weird, man. It was just weird. I had no experience with that.
No, and showering in a group like that. Yeah, I didn't shower like in high school like that when I did gym class. We didn't shower after gym class, So, but I just remember just kind of. It just was you just
get it done and get the hell out of there. Yeah.
I will say that that really didn't. When we first got there, and we talked about this, the first week of boot camp was in processing. You were getting treated like garbage, but it was almost like, I'm treating you like garbage, not because it's my job. It's because I don't fucking like you. That was the way we got treated.
And we got a million things.
To do. Let's just get this shit done. I got to get done. So they give you uniforms. They gave you all your stuff, and they, and you went through in processing, and this is pre-computers. So they were just getting stuff.
All paperwork.
They did the whole head shave thing that everybody's accustomed to. I think now they actually give you some options with that, but we didn't get options. They just gave us a buzz cut, right, as close as possible.
They really give you options now?
I think so. Yeah, I think they'll. To a certain, like high and tights, maybe. I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
But, well, you remember also we ran in boots.
Yeah.
We had sneakers, but that was when you were.
We actually went to PT class.
Yeah, went to PT, but otherwise, when you ran in
boots.
Whatever you were wearing, low quarters of boots, and And like I said, the other things I remember is the physical thing was swimming was no big deal to me, but I remember people struggled with swimming. The swimming stuff was hard. I mean,
I was skin and bones, so I struggled.
Yeah. I mean, well, it was funny because they actually had those big long poles, and you'd like try to swim to the side of the pool, and they'd push you back out into play. I mean, that's amazing now to think about how that is, but. So I remember the first week being, and then meeting your company commander. Yeah. And I remember like the on-base liberty and off-base liberty. Yeah, we weren't allowed to smoke, and nobody. Mm-hmm. The other thing I remember that quite kind of fondly was, you had to stand quarterdeck watch, and that's something you do in the military anyway. But it was an hour long, right? Yeah. And I liked having like 3:00 in the morning because you do 15-minute rounds, and we had vacant squad bays, right? Mm-hmm. So there was the way the boot camp squad bays were in Cape May, and also we kind of mentioned this before. There was a boot camp in Alameda, California, but it long since closed. So all boot campers go through Cape May. Cape May, yeah. And they have these like four-story buildings, and there's 4 wings on each story, and each one of those wings holds a company, right? And the companies use the phonetics.
Alpha Bravo Charlie. Yeah.
Right, all the way down. And I was Kilo 132. What were you?
I was Lima 113.
There you go. So, and they would, and I remember the empty squad bays were kind of creepy, but you have to make rounds every 15 minutes. I remember sometimes I'd make a round as going one of the squad bays, and I would just sit. I would just take a freaking breather, man. And it was cold. It was winter. It was winter when I went there, okay. And so and it snowed. Yeah. And so for like the last 2 or 3 weeks, we couldn't even go outside, which was pretty awesome. Right. And you went in the summer, but it was a million degrees.
It was a million. Yep.
Yeah, and it was hot. Yeah. So,
but yeah, the other thing I remember really is I remember the first couple times going to eat. You go in the chow line.
Chow was good.
I didn't mind it.
No.
But it was this weird like robotic cafeteria type situation where you have to line up really close. It's limited space, and we had, I don't know how many people in your company, 35, 40, something like that.
Way more than that.
I can't remember.
It was like 60.
Was it? Okay.
And they'll hold a lot. Remember, they had 3 high racks.
Yeah.
So
that's true. Yeah.
So,
but anyway, so I just remember them always shouting nuts to butts, and so you had to be like literally be touching the dude in front of you,
right?
Which that part I didn't like. I like my personal space, man.
Right? Why?
Yeah, but anyway, so I do also remember what the way we did it when we went through was. Everybody got their food, and then you filled up tables. There was a guy directing you, and you went to that table.
Right.
And then you had to stand there with your tray, and you had to wait until the table was completely full of all the seats were filled. Right. And then everybody got to sit down, and they gave you 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah, you forked it in pretty fast.
You had to shovel that shit in, man, and get it. And then when the guy said go, it was time to go, So this was not casual hangout sort of meals.
Yeah. It's funny because I look back on that and, I still eat fast. But
see, I'm the opposite. I'm always the last one done.
Yeah.
Always.
But it was interesting to me that there were things that I would even kind of consider just to be like, not even manners, like just, you don't eat chili with your fingers kind of stuff, right? And there was guys there that I remember like, look, silverware goes down the silverware slide.
Yes.
And the bowl, that's what they tell us to do. This isn't hard. Yes. But there were people that were...
Couldn't do it.
They were just not smart.
I don't know if they were dumb or if they were overwhelmed or if they were doing shit on purpose.
Or they just, I don't know. But there's people out there that you're just like, you are in trouble, man.
Yeah, man. In life in general.
Yeah. And so but for the most part, like I said, it at the time I didn't hate it, but I just thought, I think I was really waiting for the moment for it to become like insurmountable or very hard or anything like that. I mean, I didn't like doing push-ups. I didn't like doing sit-ups. I didn't like, Yeah,
but like you're saying, when you're in the crowd, I mean, most of the time you get away with half-assing it if you really needed to because you were tired or whatever.
And it was psychological. It was like I told you about. They're going to take us down to the beach and make us like, eat pigeon, eat seagull shit. And you're like, what? Are they really going to do that? And you're like, yeah, they did that the last a kid died. And you're like, really? Oh my gosh, And so
it never happens.
Never, there was a few times where they were like, I remember there were moments. Oh, I know what I was going to talk about. You mentioned the waxing the floor thing. You pretty much figure out real quick. There's, you have an ironing detail and a mopping detail and a waxing detail and a clean the toilets detail, and everybody had a job, and you had to do that. They didn't tell you to do that. You figured that out. There was usually people that were prior service, and they were like, we got to come up with this stuff. We got to organize, because another thing too is like when you do your laundry, you get a bag to put your colors. You get a mesh bag, and a big safety pin. You put your colors in one. You put your whites in one. Don't get that screwed up. Or your colors are going to get bleached, or your whites are going to turn blue. Right? Everything's blue.
Yeah. And when you get it back, it's just literally a ball of wrinkles. Wrinkles. Yeah.
It's the ultimate wrinkly stuff.
Yeah,
and you have to iron it all out, right? And that was something. But I remember, and like I said, I was going to mention the whole smoking thing. We weren't allowed to smoke either. If they would have spent like half a moment just to tell us, hey, now that you quit smoking, don't start smoking. That probably would have got a lot of people to quit smoking permanently. But first thing I did when I went on off,
light up.
I lit up, yeah. And
I didn't smoke at the time. I didn't smoke until a little bit later.
I went there smoking, and then but yeah. So what about as far as what was your first unit out of boot camp? That's pretty much boot camp, right? I mean,
there was some other highlights and stuff.
Like what?
Well, we got to we were required to march in the parade when the couple of companies ahead of us graduated. And so we did a bunch of training for that and whatever, and that was cool to march in the parade. Whatever, all the parents were in in the stands watching their
pretty cool.
kid graduate and whatever. So that was kind of fun. Again, being in the drill team was kind of. Were you I was prepared for that.
You were in that company that was like, I forget what that's called, like the Honor Guard company.
No, when I was in Civil Air Patrol.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, when I was civil, I already knew how to march and stuff, and I kind of in that ceremonial type of stuff. I did that in Key West. I was in the ceremonious thing in Key West.
Yeah, but in boot camp, you were just a regular old guy.
Regular schmuck. Yeah.
So what I'm asking is, there's I forget what it's called, but there's a company that
Honor Guard.
Honor Guard, yeah. And I actually had friends that did Honor Guard at DC too.
Yeah, I wasn't. I don't know. I didn't volunteer for that. I should have, I guess. But
I think a lot of times they freaking in boot camp they just they snap. They're like,
you could stay in step.
Yeah, if you look half decent in a uniform and not stupid.
But you were talking about grades and stuff. So you get ranked. You get just like in college or whatever, you get ranked, and so just like you, I was right in the middle because my academics were good, but my physical was mediocre. And so I was in the middle. And what they do is they give you this great big list of duty stations that are coming available by the time you graduate.
Right.
And, everybody gets a copy of this, and you go back to the squad bay and you're all like, oh, I'm going to get this. And the guy who's number one in the class gets first pick.
Right.
So it kind of all kind of dominoes from him. So he'll go like, oh yeah, so I want Times Square, and the next guy will go like, oh, I'm glad you picked that because I want Santa Barbara, whatever, and so on it goes. And
to that point is you talk about it, but nothing is permanent.
Yeah,
nothing
it doesn't always work out that way.
You're because two guys might go like, I want Times Square, and another guy goes, well, I kind of want Times Square. It's like I'm going to take it, and where you're ranked. Yeah, but I think they do let you know when you're ranked too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And by the way, I bet money they don't do this anymore either because it's so. Now we live in a society where I don't know.
Maybe they do. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but
anyway, so
it was
I think you pick like boot camp was 8 weeks long, and I think you picked in like week 5.5 or 6 or something like that. You had a couple of weeks of boot camp left.
Because they got to get you ready to go.
Yeah, it was pretty much towards the end, but it was still. But anyway,
your last week is
kind of gravy. Yeah.
Yeah, gravy. I did almost get freaking in a lot of trouble my last week. But what happened, just real quick on that, is I went over to they sent us. So they said, hey, a couple guys go over. The guy over at the in processing, he has something we need over here. I can't even remember what it was. And so me and two other guys went over there, and we went to his building, and we were like walking around looking for him, and we went into a squad bay in the in processing. And the squad bay, he just chewed us out because he's like, you don't know who's in the squad bay. This could be the female squad bay. Right. And he was like, well, I'm gonna, I'm thinking about letting them know so every one of you gets recycled to. Yeah. And we were like, what the hell, man? But he didn't.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so you get this list of duty stations coming available, and then you
Yeah.
pretty much know where you're ranked, and then so you kind of go to the guys ahead of you and find out what they're picking. And I got kind of lucky because nobody, including the guys below me, had ever heard of Isla Mirada. They had no clue.
Oh,
They couldn't even pronounce
shit.
it.
You went to Isla Mirada?
Well, that was my pick. That was
Right.
so I was like, I don't know, let's say there were 60 guys. I was
Right.
number 30. You know, I really was pretty much smack dab in the middle.
And tell everybody where Isla Mirada is.
Isla Mirada is 1/3 of the way down the Florida Keys.
It's a
beauty station.
Yeah, both
and
Doug
I grew
and
up going to the Keys.
and both
so,
Doug and I know where Isla Mirada is.
yeah, so I grew up going down there, so I knew where it was. So mum's the word, man. I'm like, yep, nope. I'm not sure, man. And I was like, you know, I was playing cards basically.
I do know where you went out of boot camp now.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. So my turn comes around, and yes, sir, I'd like Isla Mirada, please. And he's like, okay, check mark, and I'm
Station Isla Mirada.
Station Isla Mirada, yep. And so it was shore station. It was tiny. There's like 15 people there, and it's in the Florida Keys, and it's great, you know. So
Isla Mirada's insane. Isla Mirada Marathon.
yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, so boot camp's over, and I go home, and they give you like, I don't know, a week or 10 days or something of vacation afterwards. And so I'm at my folks' house, and I get this phone call, and it's somebody from Group Key West who was in charge of all of the keys. And they said, yeah, this is, you know, so I don't even know who it was. You know, this is so-and-so, and I'm calling to tell you that we've changed your duty station. I'm like, oh man, I worked my ass off to get Isla Mirada. I thought it was so clever that I picked it. He said, yeah, so we're sending you to Group Key West instead. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Key West.
Perfect fine.
That's fine. Yeah, that's okay.
And group too.
Yeah, but I had no idea what that meant. You know, I didn't understand what it meant. So basically what it means, is group is got several units attached to it, and you could be assigned to any of those, including ships. So it had like, at the time, the Ute and the Lipan were down there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Ute and the Lipan were down there, whatever. So you come in as a non-rate, you could go anywhere. You could go with it, like, this is where we need you to go. Right?
I just thought basically you'd be riding a lawnmower.
No. I didn't know anything at the time, but when I showed up down there and I checked in, they're like, okay, yeah, well, so yeah, we got you, man, and we're gonna station you at the aids to navigation team. And I'm like, oh crap, what the hell is that? I had no clue, right? And I'm like, okay, yes, ma'am. It was some SK1 or something.
You won the lottery.
I did. I won the lottery.
You did.
I am not kidding you. As I was like, you know, there's so much paper nowadays. Everything's digital. Back then, dude, you had a service record and like. Papers everywhere, paper for this, paper for that. And I was organizing all my shit, getting my stuff together, and some dude came in literally like 3 minutes behind me, got the Lipan. And so if I would have waited a couple extra minutes in the parking lot, I would have been in the Lipan instead of the aids to navigation team. But anyway, so yeah, that was great, man.
Lipan 97?
Yeah, I guess, whatever it was, yeah.
It wasn't 97s or 95s. I can't remember.
No. That was the Lipan was
110?
205 or something like that.
Oh, you're kidding!
They were junky,
oh my God.
round hull,
like the Escape and
old
stuff.
school, old
Popeye looking tug.
Yeah,
I did
rust buckets.
I did a tour on the Escape, not a tour. I did a TAD on it. Yeah. And
but anyway, so I lucked out. Yeah,
okay, because there was 95s is what they were. 95s was what I was thinking about, but it wasn't a 95.
No, it wasn't a 95.
I think it was 95.
Yeah, it was like it was
87, 95s, 110s were the small cutters.
Yep, and then above that it got to the U,
the 210, 205s. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So in the Aegis navigation team, basically all we did was hot pack buoys. When the lights would go out in buoys, we'd bring out some car batteries and attach those so the lights would stay on, so people could navigate, and then change out the reflective day boards on posts and stuff all around the keys.
And fish.
And we did a lot of fishing, a lot of swimming, man. Yeah. That was a great duty.
Yeah. How long? Well, I tell you what. Where are we at right now? Let me check.
I don't know. Hungry.
Yeah, so I'll tell you about my experience, and then we'll stop
and then we'll
there.
Wrap,
and that'll be our first experience to go. But we're going to revisit this because we got a
lot of stories to tell.
I told you we have a lot. So my thing is it's very similar, almost identical to yours. I don't remember the whole bargaining and all that kind of stuff. I remember my friend did better than me. I think probably academically we were about the same, but he was probably a little bit better physical shape. And so he picked a little bit before me. He ended up being and I really didn't mention that too much, but I went with a friend. You know, we went together, and that was something. That was a lot of support
cool.
there.
So you guys did you signed up together and went to boot camp together.
Yep. We were signed up together, went to boot camp together.
That's
As
cool.
a matter of fact, he was texting
Buddy
me.
program.
Yeah, he was texting me today, as a matter of fact. And our friendship has been kind of.
Did he stay in, retire?
Yes, he had the 2-year enlistment, and he retired as a Master Chief.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so.
How did I never know that? How did I know you for 20 freaking years? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's funny because we've always been friends. You know, we've always been close. We talk occasionally, but you know, I don't know. And just to say, he may be listening. I mean, we were stationed together in Virginia. We were close in Virginia. Then I went to Texas. So you and I were really good friends in Key West, but we did kind of, when I went to Virginia, we separated
for a while. I mean, I came up there to visit you and we went hiking and stuff.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was a good trip. Maybe talk about that. But then when I moved to Texas and you and I started communicating again, I wasn't communicating with him, you know?
Yeah, weird.
Yeah. You'll meet him someday. But he did like a 2-year enlistment and when ET and he became a Master Chief in the whole 9 yards. But
cool.
but him there. I remember a couple of funny stories. Is that he was like one of those guys that he went through puberty like probably when he was like 12, right? And he got like a mustache. So he had a mustache, right? And he had that mustache. And him and I went to college together. And we were roommates, right?
Right.
Had this mustache, and I remember him shaving it off in boot camp, and I just remember it just really bothered. I think it hurt him.
Oh, yeah?
Shave it off, yeah. And I just remember him coming out of the
because
bathroom.
they made you, right? They wouldn't let you. Yeah, they
no,
wouldn't let you
mustache
keep a
in boot camp,
mustache.
yeah. I remember him shaving it off, and I think it bothered him. And then I remember seeing him, and he was actually sad. He wasn't angry. He was just like, oh, God, I hate this. And then the other thing is, so we went all the way through. I also remember there was a guy, another one of the people in our company that was a shit magnet. His last name was, well, I don't think he cares. His last name was Harrison. And we had a guy in our company whose last name was Harris, and he was a shit magnet, right? And so anytime the company commander would go like, you know, Harris, and I remember him always being like, stop, you know,
Stop
it's like stop with Harris, you know, because and I remember like that Harris guy. Another one of my funny stories that's worth mentioning is we were doing that whole inspection where we're standing in front of our racks and we're in our undress, right? And our undress, you talk about things that they do that they probably have done for years, and they just kind of pass it down. But we were being, you know how they would do these inspections. Our company commander would go inspect somebody else, and then some company commander would come inspect. Yeah, right. There's 8 or 10 companies there all at one time. And this guy came in, and he was like a fire plug, you know, and just this little stout guy, you know. Sometimes you see company commanders, and you're like, you're just lucky that, you know, you look like Joe Shit the Rag Man. You should be a company commander. So sometimes you see ones and you're like, that guy's tight. That guy's tight, right? This guy was tight, right? And so he's walking down, and we were supposed to tie a Windsor knot. That was the knot that we had, right? Had to be a Windsor, right? So he's walking and he's inspecting us, and you know, he goes past me, and Harris stood exactly the opposite of me. So he goes all the way down, turns around, comes back, and he's inspecting, and he gets to Harris. And he walks past, and then he comes back, and he looks at Harris, and he goes, recruit, what's that knot you got tied there? And Harris goes, sir, it's a 4-in-hand, sir. And he goes, open your fucking mouth. And so Harris opens his mouth, and he grabs the small end of the tie and the big end of the tie, and like pulls it super tight, like kind of chokes Harris, like, and Harris goes like and it forces him to open his mouth up a little more, and he shoves the tie in his mouth. I'm just like, and of course, me and the guy next to me,
trying like not to laugh, dude. You laughed,
we were laughing. To this day, I remember that. I remember that. I was just like, holy shit, that was funny. And so the Superman and the 4-in-hand cracked my shit up. And so and Randy was there, and that was my friend, and so he was very supportive. So if you're listening, Randy, I'm glad we went through it together. And so going down the list, and Randy picked DC to work with the Master Chief, and I picked the Harriet Lane. I picked a 270 out of Virginia. And the reason I picked the Harriet Lane was It was the closest to Atlanta.
Okay.
And I was from Atlanta. That's what the MEPS I went through. And I thought, well, I'm close to Atlanta, and that way I can go visit my folks. That never happened. I could have picked any place else. I could have picked a land unit anywhere.
Right.
I think I could have picked Hawaii. You know what I mean? But which I should have. But the Harry Lane was fine. It was a good. Yeah. It was a very interesting experience that maybe we'll talk about next time.
We'll get that on next time because I can tell you about the Venturous and the Camden and all the ones that I was on.
Yeah, we got all the way up through boot camp. That's kind of what I was hoping to do today. Yeah. So yeah. And I will tell you right now, and I think you and I talked about this before, and I think you agree with me. Oh, about how many years did you do? How many years?
I did 20 on the button.
Okay, I did 21.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought you did more, but nope. and I was texting with one of my friends the other day. You retired FNS warrant, right?
FNS, yep, W2.
W2, okay. And I retired as a lieutenant, so both of us were lifers.
Yep.
And I don't regret a moment.
Well, the other thing is, like, you talk to a lot of people. I work in retail, and I see a lot of people come in. I think I told you this, and they're wearing a Navy hat and a Navy shirt, and they got all this pins and shit all over. And
right.
Of course, I'm a social guy, so I go up to him, "Hey, Navy, huh?" And he's like, "Yep." Like, how long were you in? 3 years, 27 days. Like, dude, you're 60 or 80 years old. Like, you're still wearing this shit? What the hell, man? You know, I was like 20 years. I never wear anything Coast Guard. It's not that I'm embarrassed.
No.
I did my time. I was happy. I was proud of it. I did a lot of excellent things. Right. But that time is gone, and now I'm doing other things, you know?
Right. Well, yeah.
And so, but yeah, I mean, I don't, it's strange how many people go in and they retire as an E6,
right,
or an E5, even some of them before they stopped letting that happen. But
yes, I was about ready to say
I was upwardly mobile, man. I mean, my first couple of years, I was like trying to figure life out, you know, because I was a young person at the time as well, just trying to figure out life. But once I figured out, hey, promotion's good, you make more money, you get a better job, I was on it, dude. Yeah, I was always way up when I was taking tests. I was always real good at that. Right. I think I only missed the cut once, and that was for first class because it was super competitive. Right. But outside of that, yeah.
Well, I definitely want to talk about that next time. As far as because only because both of us were enlisted and we chose race and all that. Yeah. No, I don't. I don't regret it at all, man.
No, same here. Oh God, there were times where it was like that was a difficult life. It's hard on you in a lot of ways. Right. But looking back. No.
Dude, there was for everything that was hard, man. There was some stuff that was awesome. Yeah. I mean, there's some things I did and saw that dude, I've been in Antarctica.
Yeah, I know it's awesome.
I've been to Australia, you know, and I've shot big ass guns. Yep. You know what I mean? So, that was very cool.
Yeah, got to see $100 million worth of cocaine.
I did too. Yeah. I don't know how much it cost. I got to see 2.5 tons of cocaine. Yeah. That's a great story. Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to hearing yours. And you actually did the whole. You were involved in the what's that? The helicopter.
Mm-hmm. Hitron,
yeah, which is another story. Yeah, which is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, man, we better shut up, man.
Yeah. It's time to go. We got lasagna waiting for us.
We got lasagna, bro.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening. This is something we're definitely going to pick back up.
Part one, yeah.
Part one,
probably several.
Several parts, exactly. Well, thank you very much for listening. Again, this is Tony, and I've been here with Doug, and you guys have a great day.
Analoging and spectruming.
This has been an Analog Spectrum production and presentation. We appreciate you listening to our podcast. It means a lot to both me and Doug. As always, we're looking for topic suggestions, folks to interview, and friends to join us on the show. If you can help with any or all of these, go ahead and send a quick note to Analog Spectrum, that's all one word, at gmail.com. Are you curious about our past uploads? Go check out our website. You'll find the link in the description. Finally, for any cast you've enjoyed, please leave a comment and a review. For that last part, it would mean a lot to us if you'd make it 5 stars. And don't forget to share us with your friends and family. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy day and spending time with us. There's nothing better than hanging out with you and all our friends in this crazy Analog Spectrum world.